Housing clearance rates as we change pace are rising and search activity growing as the property market accelerates. To tell us more, Nerida Conisbee, Chief Economist of REA Group, joins us. This is pretty bright news, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it is looking brighter and brighter. Every week clearance rates are pretty high. You know, they're above 75%, getting up to 80%. We're seeing strong growth in premium suburbs, particularly in Sydney. And we are starting to see a ripple effect into other areas as well.
That's good, isn't it? Before we go more into that, yesterday in the news they were talking about over 200,000 Airbnb users being put on notice by the the ATO. There's so many acronyms. The ATO. What's the news there?
Yeah, so there are a lot of people who aren't claiming or not declaring the income that they make from Airbnb. So it is an issue. I mean, people do need to pay their taxes.
That's right.
There's a similar problem with negative gearing as well. The ATO did a bit of a crackdown earlier in the year and found that most people weren't claiming things properly. So I think, you know, people need to pay their taxes, obviously. And there are a lot of issues with Airbnb. I mean, it is a great income earner for a lot of people, but it does mess around with rental markets as well. So, you know, there's a lot of considerations as more and more people use it, and it really grows in popularity.
I'm sure there's an element of naivety around it as well, because a lot of people try to do their tax by themselves and probably aren't completely cognizant of every single rule that there is. Now, with property, there's positives and there's negatives. So with the capital cities, which cities are doing well, which aren't, and what kind of growth are we seeing?
Yeah, so if we have a look over since the property boom started, it was 2011 really in Sydney we started to see prices increasing. So Sydney during the boom went up 70%, and then it came back. It's come back about sort of 12 to 13%. If we look at Melbourne, Melbourne was quite similar. It didn't increase as much, but it did come back a little bit less. And then somewhere like Hobart increased a lot and actually hasn't come back much at all. Yeah, so Hobart, it was quite a different set of conditions happening in Hobart compared to what happened in Sydney and Melbourne.
And what about the demand in properties under 500,000?
Yeah, so what we've been looking at, we always look at the most in-demand property. So when we talk about most in-demand, it's properties that are seeing sort of 8,000 views per listing, or suburbs that see around 8,000 views per listing. At the moment, they're all premium suburbs, quite unaffordable, but if we have a look at places seeing high views per listing, most of them are actually in Tasmania. So Moona is coming up at number one, but there's the cheapest one that's very popular is a suburb called Primrose Sands in Tasmania, and it's quite a nice suburb actually. It's 235,000, but it is seeing very, very high views per listing.
We often talk about property prices and the purchase and sale of property, but a lot of people prefer to rent, and there are a lot of renters right across this country. What is the rental market like?
Yeah, so a third of Australian households are renting, and it's up from 25%. So lots of drivers there. A lot of it's to do with affordability, changes to family structure, people moving around a little bit more. That increases rents. What we're finding at the moment, Hobart again is really outperforming. So 9% increase in Hobart over the past 12 months. Quite different conditions to what we're seeing in Darwin. Darwin's been pulling back, and then if we have a look in Sydney as well, Sydney's actually come back about 2%. If we have a look on a local government area basis, we're starting to see some positive signs in Perth. So premium Perth is slowly turning around. It's been turning around for quite some time, but we're seeing some very good rental conditions in premium Perth suburbs at the moment.
Are the unit market and the housing market like two separate beasts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have a look at somewhere like Parramatta rents for apartments are coming down quite quickly, whereas if we have a look at somewhere like the houses in Parramatta, they're going up. So usually that has to do with the high levels of development. So anywhere where there's been lots and lots of development, particularly in Sydney, because the development came on very, very quickly, we are finding a bit of a pullback in rents at the moment. It will change. I mean, I think this is the thing is we do have some areas across Sydney which are oversupplied, but, you know, we do find that oversupply issues, particularly in a city like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, they do get absorbed pretty quickly.
Absolutely. There's some great places there just on screen that we're seeing. And certainly auction day today across the country.
Yeah, we should see some high clearance rates again. We're still not seeing an uptick in listing volume, so it's still looking pretty negative out there for properties available, but it does make auction clearance rates pretty high and also gives people some pretty good results when they go to auction.
And I wish all those people that are attending auctions today all the very best. They are nerve-wracking.
Oh, horrible.
Oh, they really are difficult. Nerida, great to see you as always.
Thanks for having me.